there are a lot of unknowns with what's going on with the WNBA and the CBA, and what's going to happen with expansion draft. So I think a lot of those things will dictate the approach in regards to free agency.
Welcome to In Case You Missed It with Khristina Williams. And I'm super excited about this episode because the Dallas Wings are starting a new chapter this offseason with a fresh voice leading the team. Today, we'll talk about his 25 years at the University of South Florida, what drew him to the WNBA at this point in his career, and his plans for developing young stars like Paige Bueckers. Please welcome to In Case You Missed It, Dallas Wings head coach Jose Fernandez. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you for having me, Khristina.
Absolutely. So you spent 25 years at the University of South Florida. What was it about this moment in your career that made the Dallas Wings the right next step for you?
I go back. I had an incredible experience at the University of South Florida. Tampa was my family and I's home for 25 seasons, and we were incredibly supported in every which way, from coaching staff, budget, players, and I think we had a lot of success there. What attracted me to the Dallas organization was a vision from the front office and also the current roster. There's some very, very great things headed for this organization in regards to the brand new practice facility, right? Moving downtown to play in Dallas. So there's some very, very great things lying ahead. And I think where the WNBA right now is at a point where it's, how would you say, meteoric, right? It has just skyrocketed. And the landscape of Division I college basketball has changed tremendously over the last 2-3 years in regards to cost of attendance, Alston, summer cost of attendance, Christmas, shared revenue, the NIL space, the transfer portal, and also NCAA tournament seeding and the net and the quadrant system. So a lot of things. But I was virtually coaching professional basketball in college. So having this opportunity to do it and coach the best players in the world and going into the franchise that has such a roster and some very, very good, talented players on the roster and the number one pick in the draft, it's very, very attractive. And I'm looking forward to rounding out the staff. And once the CBA gets done and we get into expansion draft and free agency and leading into training camp, I think it's an exciting time for everybody in Dallas, our season ticket holders, and everybody involved.
What was the one thing that certainly convinced you when Kurt Miller gave you that call up about the opening position of being a head coach in Dallas?
Of course, there were a lot of questions to be answered. It's no secret that my wife and I were in Dallas last December. It just wasn't the right time for both parties. So when the job did come open and Kurt and I spoke, there were a lot of questions to be asked on both sides, right? Why now on my end? And again, the true sincere interest in the Wings organization, and then also talking about the current roster and potentially the first round pick and playing style and free agency, putting together a staff. So there was a lot of back and forth, and a lot of things really just aligned with me in the front office, and also Greg's vision for the Dallas Wings, not next year, but 5-10 years down the road. So I think whenever you take a professional job and go into an organization, there's got to be incredible synergy and great alignment. And the vision has to be beneficial on both sides.
Right place, right time. I'm wondering, what was your first impressions of the transition to Dallas? And also, I heard something really interesting about you, that you have 5 daughters and 8 rescue dogs. So how do you sort of transition all of those different things to a city like Dallas?
I strive in chaos. Chaos is fun, so it's good. Uh, well, right now it's really cold. I don't like the cold weather, so I'm adjusting to that. So right now I'm going back and forth from Tampa to Dallas till my wife decides on a home that's gonna be able to house her and I and Taylor, one of our daughters, and our 8 dogs. So we need land. We'll be here in the summer, so a pool has to be a must, but it's gotta be a dog friendly neighborhood.
Listen, you're a Dallas realtor. If you're listening to this, Coach needs a big home for all of his dogs. Lots and lots of space. I want to talk about your legacy at USF before we dive into all things Dallas Wings, because you turned that program into a consistent NCAA contender. And how did you approach building that program from the ground up over your tenure there?
Well, I got a great opportunity at a young age. I was 27, 28 years old. The program didn't have a lot of history. So um, now, when you look back year 1 to year 25 and you look at our how the program drives revenue and merchandise sales and season tickets and attendance and our courtside seats and the amount of money that the women's basketball program fundraises and assists the athletic department from year 1 to 25. It's a big difference. I think whenever you go into an opportunity like that, I didn't worry what I didn't have. Right, I just worried about what we were going to do, and that was hire a great staff, recruit incredible student athletes, make sure our student athletes were developed the right way inside and outside of the university. And we did some very good things, and winning came. And when winning comes, it's easy to go ahead and turn a program around. The toughest thing about the toughest part is sustaining success. And when you sustain success, your older kids already talking to the freshmen that are coming in, whoever transfers into the program, whether junior college or another 4-year institution, they already set the standards and the cultures in place. Hey, this is how we do things here. So, um, with that being said, it's similar to coming into the Dallas Wings, right? There are things that are going to be very important to my staff and I on what we're going to talk about and what were our standards and how we're going to uphold those standards. But I mean, our culture is going to be driven by the players and how and about the locker room, and that'll start in training camp. And then when we have our 12, there are things that they're going to decide on how we're going to live our culture every day and everything that we do.
You mentioned culture, which is certainly the one point I want to hit on, because you're joining a franchise that's had multiple coaches in recent years. So you talked about the culture piece and building it from the locker room first, but what else is going into how you approach and building this culture in the team?
It's going to have to be player led, right? Yeah, I think if you saw my press conference, there were 3 things I talked about: accountability, trust, and truth. Those are the things that how we're going to approach things. But what are our players going to live and breathe every single day in everything that we do? How we travel, how we prepare, how we practice, how we communicate with each other, how the staff communicates with them, how they communicate with me and the staff. Um, so it's a process, right? Um, Coming into next year, we're coming off a team that only won 10 games, but they had a lot of adversity with free agency, with injuries. But, there were 17, 18 games that were lost by single digits. So there was a lot of character in that locker room, and there was a lot of youth. So I think now is continuing to develop sincere relationships with the players on the roster right now, leading into training camp and what our roster is going to look like. And then it's a small time to prepare with 2 exhibition games for opening night.
For people who are not familiar with your coaching style, or with you as a person, you're coming into this WNBA audience involved, but you've been involved with women's basketball for over 25 years. If someone were to walk into one of your practices one day, what would they notice about how you like to run things?
There's going to be great structure and great organization and incredible accountability and a lot of teaching involved.
So I want to go to the Paige Bueckers bit because she's a huge piece into this new era of the Dallas Wings. We heard that you met with Gino Auriemma recently. What stood out to you most about that conversation with Gino, and what's one thing that he kind of told you about Paige that you can't learn from anywhere
No,
else?
I already knew Paige before I accepted the job, just coaching against her. And it's no secret that Gino and I are very, very close and we're very, very good friends. We saw each other when Connecticut played at South Florida, and I went up to Connecticut to watch them practice twice and also play Ohio State. So, um, players, Paige is a very, 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 very good basketball player. She's one of the faces of the league and the future of the WNBA and also USA basketball. Um, she wants to be coach. She wants to win. So that's plain and simple.
When you think about the Wings' young core, where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth?
Well, there are a lot of unknowns with what's going on with the WNBA and the CBA, and what's going to happen with expansion draft. So I think a lot of those things will dictate um, the approach in regards to free agency. But you have someone like Enrique that's been an all-star, right? Leading scorer in the Wings organization. What's left for Enrique to do here with the Dallas Wings is win a championship. What's going to be her legacy, right? I think, Maddie Segrist is another young star in the league. We got some other really good young pieces as well. When you look at Louisa coming in and Isaiah James. So, um, um, a walk was a part of this process, and her coming back to the Wings would be very beneficial for her future. Um, but look at the experience that she got in Italy and Turkey. So there are a lot of things now that will be in our control, and a lot of things that will not be in our control. And over these next 4.5 months, before we get into training camp. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time for the organization, also with the number one pick, um, and with this talented roster.
That was my next thing. The number one pick goes to Dallas in 2026. How do you plan to integrate that player with Paige, with Enrique, with all of the players that you talked about, a part of that young core, despite the fact that we don't know kind of the future of what free agency and expansion drafts will look like, the rules, et cetera. And you're fresh off the college scene, so what players might be available next year for the draft, and you've been able to scout some of those players, have your teams play against some of these top players. Um, what are your thoughts in terms of where Dallas will kind of start to gauge in terms of the process and building around that core with the number one pick?
I think there's a lot of work that goes into that between watching games and watching, prospects all around the world. I can just tell you this: it's great to have the number one pick because now you control a lot of things. If we didn't have the number one pick, there's a lot of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
We knew we were going to be no worse than third, but getting the number one, now there's a lot of things that we can control, and I'll leave it at that.
As a new coach, you mentioned time and time again throughout this interview, you're stepping into this offseason of the WNBA at a really interesting time with the CBA the negotiations and
Mhm.
how they've already sort of impacted your transition. But given that, how has the Dallas Wings supported you in terms of preparation for the team, even though the circumstances currently are sort of uncertain?
Well, it's just staying prepared, right? I think right now is making sure we have a plan on training camp, right? When we're going to practice, what are going to be our off days, when our exhibition games are, when's media day going to be during training camp. Really, right now is the support of working with front office and putting a staff together, the front row and the second row, and that's crucial. It's vital because we want to surround ourselves with an incredible staff and also a staff that's going to be excellent in regards to coaching and preparing and player development for our players. The next piece to that right now is really um, looking at the team individually, player by player. What are things in the off season they got to get better at? We're going to have a lot of players playing in unrivaled, and a lot of them are playing overseas as we speak. But the biggest thing too is evaluating talent for the draft because we got two picks, the number one and the 31. And doing the best job of that and going out and watching as many games as we can to prepare for those two picks.
Lots of nuggets that you just said there. And the first one being player development. I know that's a huge point of emphasis for a lot of teams this cycle in the offseason, implementing coaches and staffs who can develop players. And your 25 years of coaching, what have you learned about how to develop, top and elite athletes? And then I'm going to turn that back to the Paige portion. What are some of the ways you think that you can just make her game better, or Arike as well?
Well, I'll start with what we did in South Florida. We didn't get the top 20, top 50 type of recruit at South Florida. So we had to do a great job of evaluating and then making sure those players fit into the system that we were running. And then having a great player development plan on what they were going to do in the off season in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and then making sure we put them in the best possible space to be successful for life after USF. And I think that's why we've had so many people get drafted in the WNBA draft. And as I left South Florida, I had 28, 29 former players playing overseas currently. So I think it went through really doing a great job evaluating, putting them in great positions to be successful on the offensive and defensive end of the floor. That goes with the system. And then the player development piece in season and out of season. Um, I think with both Paige and Enrique, um, they're both exceptional guards that can create off the bounds, that they both can shoot the three, they can get to the free throw line. It's them understanding how they're going to be utilized, right? And there's got to be great communication between me and my staff and both of them on where they feel comfortable on the floor. We've always, the success we had in South Florida, our best players got the most touches, right? And they got touches in space. A lot of things were run for them, and that's not going to change here in Dallas.
You mentioned building a coaching staff that can support that vision in terms of player development, also implementing the culture. As you think about how you're going to start building out your own staff, what are some characteristics you're looking at? I know that another point of conversation this off season has been certainly franchises hiring those with NBA experience. Is that sort of the pattern that you're thinking about, or former players? What are some things you're looking for in terms of building your support staff?
I think there's got to be a great balance, between the NBA, the WNBA. There'll be some college influence in the second row, but mainly that front row is going to be NBA and WNBA experience. Um, you're going to have three assistants in that second row. Can you have another assistant with WNBA experience? Probably two player development individuals, and then someone that can do video and analytics and all that other stuff. That'll consist of 7, 8 people. But again, whenever you put a staff together, can they be elite communicators? Can they be great developers? X and O knowledge preparation. There's so many things, but you have to have a great balance. It's almost like you're putting a puzzle together where you want different types of individuals that are going to bring their talents to all come together and have a great staff.
I want to go back to your 25 years at USF, and it's kind of going to connect to your player development and your coaching. You've done this for so long. What shifts have you seen the most in women's basketball that sort of influences the game? Because we're now talking about the pattern of NBA coaches being in the WNBA and the style evolving in terms of the style of play. But what have you personally seen in over 2 decades?
Yeah, there's been a different type of talent, that's for sure, in regards to athletic ability and speed and quickness. Um, but again, as a coach, you have to really now with junior college, with the portal, with returning, with transfers, you have to really adjust. You can just say, "Hey, I want to play this way," and not have the personnel to play the way that you want to play. So you have to adjust to your roster, and you have to change some things, and that'll be no different here in Dallas.
Is there a player during your tenure at the University of South Florida in terms of player development that you're particularly proud of when you look back at the span of your career there, that you could apply here in Dallas?
I've had a lot of them. So, but I'm really proud of how Courtney has developed. Courtney Williams and developed her game, and now with the ball in her hands and what she's done with Minnesota, and she strictly when she came into the league, she was someone that played off the ball. But if you look at her shooting percentages from her freshman year, sophomore, junior, and senior year, and look how she shot the ball well from 3-point range and how she improved on that during college. I thought that was very, very good on her part, but she put in a lot of work to do that. And I thought she really got better defensively as her college career expanded.
Courtney, they call her the mid-range queen in the W.
Well,
Have you seen the stud
you know
buds?
what?
Have
I
you
don't
seen the
want,
stud buds?
we can't do that because I don't want Paige to give me a hard time. We got a mid-range queen ourselves here in Dallas.
I love that. I love that. Coach, what's the first thing you want fans to notice about this team under your leadership as you entered into the new era of the Dallas Wings?
I think when you come watch us play, they're going to play with incredible energy, passion, and love for one another. Um, and I think when you come watch us, you're going to see a team that's going to be excited to play with one another.
When
Yeah.
the season is over in 2026, what would make you feel like the move to Dallas was a success?
That we did everything every single day with incredible energy, passion for one another, and we stuck to the process. Right, we're going to talk about things where we want to get to at the end of the year, but it's going to be our attitude and work ethic and preparation that we do every day to get to where we want to get to. Right, I came here to win a championship, so success for me would be positioning ourselves in the playoffs with an opportunity to win a championship, right? So I think it's because once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen and good things will happen. If, of course, a lot of things have to go into that in regards to preparation. You got to stay injury free. And that would be the biggest thing for me jumping in. I know it's year one, but in year one, I think how we approach things every single day will lead to incredible success in year one.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for joining us this week on In Case You Missed It with Khristina Williams. I know fans are certainly excited for your arrival in Dallas and the new era of Wings basketball. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Khristina.